Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we got another episode of reviewing NHL teams offseason so far, as today we got the Washington Capitals ahead of us as we're going to be taking a look at their offseason as they were pretty busy, I guess, this offseason. I guess dealing with mostly with Alexander Ovechkin's contract negotiations and re-signing Samsonov as well. But, you know, this team didn't really make a whole lot of big changes to their team as they weren't really able to. They didn't have a lot of cap space. They're kind of stuck up against the wall, and they weren't able to trade away Kuznetsov to, open up some salary cap. So they had some difficulties this past offseason. But before we get into the video, I'd like to just say, if you are new to the channel, make sure to slap that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. That'll be very much appreciated. So let's get into this puppy here with the Washington Capitals. As you guys all know, we were kind of talking at the beginning there, but they didn't make a whole lot of moves, and that kind of concerns me here for the future of this team, because this team is just getting older and older and older, and this team is not getting any better right now. It really isn't. Last year they went 36, 15, and 5. They were all right for goals for, but the biggest concern was their goals against. And they traded away Brendan Dillon, who is a very solid defensive defenseman for this team, who's now gone, and they didn't really do a whole lot to acquire anyone to improve their team at all. Samsonov and Vitek Venasek were all right last year, and they're going to be going with that same goalie tandem coming to this year. So there's lots to be concerned here with the Capitals, and the way that they did their offseason, of course, mainly focusing on re-signing Ovechkin and locking him up for the next 5 years. Without a doubt, you definitely want to keep your all-star on the team, but at the sacrifice of not being able to improve your team, I don't know, man. So instead of babbling on about that, let's kind of get into this episode and talk about what the Caps did, review and look at what they did. And the first trade that they made is where they picked up 2 second-round picks for Brendan Dillon, which honestly, it's a really good deal. You get 2 second-round picks out of this deal when you're basically just trying to, dump off Dillon's cap. And, you get a nice 2 second-round picks for the next 2 years. So this could be meaning that you could maybe trade for a depth player later on throughout the year if need be, or use those draft picks to make some nice draft selections later on in the year, because this team is definitely going to need some more prospects, and I'm hoping McClellan will recognize that this team needs to start building up that prospect system. They're not going to have Ovechkin and Nicholas Backstrom for the rest of their lives, and I mean, Kuznetsov is doing whatever the hell he's doing right now. He hasn't been the player that they really need him to be, especially right now where Backstrom is, of course, getting injured again before the start of the season, and he won't be able to start with the Caps. So that means Kuznetsov's going to have to be that big guy, and it also looks like maybe Hendrix Lapierre or Connor McMichael might be getting an opportunity to jump in the lineup this year. So they got some young guys that are ready to go, and I'm excited to see how well those young guys will do, but they definitely got to start developing that prospect core a little bit more, and I do like the deal. It just sucks to lose a defenseman like Brendan Dillon, who brought some nice defensive defenseman attributes to the team. And then they also traded away one of those second round picks to, of course, pick up Vitek Venasek. So I would have to say it was a pretty good deal all in all with the trades that they made. They didn't really lose a whole lot. Plus, they got their goalie back in Vitek Venasek from the Seattle Kraken. And then we'll move on to the draft, which their draft was all right. They got some decent prospect here with Vincent Urio. He played in the AHL there for the Brandon Wheat Kings. They also got Brent Johnson here as well, the right-handed defenseman as well. So picking up some defensemen for the future here for the Washington Capitals, but not a huge draft for them. Just some depth adds, not a fantastic draft. But we'll move on towards the free agent signings, which, like I said, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about with this team in their free agency. The only guy they really got back was Alexander Ovechkin on a 5-year, $9.5 million deal, which we're going to be taking a look at his analytics, and make sure to go check out my boy Jfresh. These are the analytics that I'll be using for today's video. Once again, make sure to go check him out. His link will be down in the description below for his Patreon. But here's Alexander Ovechkin's analytics. And now, I'm a bit concerned about this contract just because it is 5 years at 9.5, and definitely, without a doubt, near the end of the deal, he might not be, as useful. Even now, he's not a very useful player. I mean, not saying that he's not useful. It's just, defensively, he is a total liability back there. We all know that. He could definitely still hit. He still brings that type of game. But, the biggest thing that he does do is score goals, and that's what he's been doing throughout his entire career without a doubt. And I think he's definitely going to be able to carry that all the way until his retirement. Is just, $9.5 million for a guy that, is only scoring right now, not doing a whole lot for your team. The Washington Capitals are putting a lot, and the reason why I'm kind of talking about this is because the Washington Capitals are putting a lot of money into old guys like TJ Oshie, like Nicholas Backstrom, and Alexander Ovechkin. And the reason why we're kind of going over this is because it's definitely going to drain the team. It really is. Like, here in the coming years, this will definitely be, when we're looking back at the Washington Capitals and they're in a really intense rebuild, it's going to be because, they spent the big time money on Ovechkin, and they're going to continue trying to win a cup until, Ovechkin leaves the team, or this team is, in the burner. It's going to be like the Detroit Red Wings. Remember how the Detroit Red Wings were when they had Datsuk and Zetterberg on that team? They tried to make that team be good for so long until, they missed out in the playoffs, and then they started knowing that, like, hey, we're not a good team anymore. And the Washington Capitals, they're still a very good team without a doubt, but you could definitely see that they're going to have a slow decline over the next few years. And still, I'm not complaining about the deal. I think it's really good for Alexander Ovechkin. Sure, it might be a little long, but he's the franchise player, and I totally understand that. That's why I'm not downgrading this move. I'm not, dissing on it, because I think, Ovi deserves this type of money. He decided to lock himself up on a $9.5 million deal for 13 years when this guy could have been getting paid way more than what he was. He could have made way more money, but he decided to go back down to $9.5 million again. So, absolutely huge respect for Ovechkin. I absolutely love him, and he's still ripping it up. He's still doing as good as what he was doing. Maybe he's not scoring as much, but he's still ripping it up as much as he's ripping it up. So, anyways, moving on. They just signed some depth guys, Matt Irwin, Dylan McIlrath, and then the other guy, Samsonov, to a 1-year, $2 million deal. And that was basically it for the Washington Capitals. There wasn't a whole lot to review on. I guess just really talk about Alexander Ovechkin and maybe the steady decline of this team without a doubt, because you look at their defense, and yeah, you're going to start seeing a steady decline down there. Justin Schultz has been doing pretty good. Nick Jensen has been but you lose a good defenseman in Brendan Dillon. Now you're gonna have to rely a lot more on Kempny, who was injured throughout the most of the season, I think, last year. And Dmitry Orlov and John Carlson. So we're gonna have to see, how well the youngsters will do there as well, because Martin February might be jumping in the lineup, because they really, unless you play Matt Irwin in the top 6 as well, but he's kind of a meh defenseman to play in the top 6. But this team is starting to deal with some salary cap concerns. This is a team that won the Stanley Cup and has been kind of steadily declining slowly, right? Backstrom's only going to get older. Ovi's just going to keep getting older. And I would love to see Ovi get that, that record. And I think that's the reason why he signed for the next 5 years. And this will most likely be his last contract ever in the NHL. It was because he wanted to sign the next 5 years with the Washington Capitals, the team that he loves playing for, the team that, where his whole career started, right? And where he won his first Stanley Cup, and I think he's going to retire with the Washington Capitals, and I think this will most likely be his last contract. So I'm not dissing the contract. I don't think I'm going to put anything bad on it, but I think I'm going to go right in the middle at a B with this team. There wasn't a whole lot of moves that were fantastic. They didn't really do a whole lot. They were pretty stale. Actually, I'm going to go with a B minus, because they didn't do a whole lot with their goaltending. Vitek Vanecek and Samsonov, it's a very young tandem, and they were all right last year. There was a lot of times where Vitek Vanecek was completely hot, and then there's times where he was just completely cold. So Samsonov's going to have to be a big-time backup goal, or big-time starting goalie this year, and then their defense needs to step up big time. And their forward core, they got to have some of their youngsters like McMichael and maybe even Lapierre jump in the lineup this year. So lots of needs there in Washington right now, but I think they'll be all right. I think they're in a very tough division in the Metro, but I feel like these are probably going to be one of the last years you might see the Capitals in the playoffs here soon if they don't add some better pieces to this team, or and a big player like Kuznetsov, if he doesn't step up this year, if Kuznetsov plays the way that he was last year, I don't have very much confidence in this team, especially if Kuznetsov, unless you have McMichael or Lapierre jump up for you and play massively. This is one of the teams I'm in, the middle on. I could see this team totally just being a demolition derby, but I could also see this team not play as well this year as well. So we'll have to see how it ends up for the Washington Capitals. I feel like most likely they will be a playoff team, but this is going to be most likely near one of the last years that they make it into the playoffs. I could start seeing a steady decline with a lot of their players, and they're getting old. I mean, look at their top four. They're all above 30. A lot of their big all-stars, they're above 30. So it's definitely getting that time here soon for the Washington Capitals. But I'm sorry if you're a Capitals fan and you're probably not wanting to hear this right now that your team is on a steady decline. You're like, Peyton, shut up. All right, I will. All right. Anyways, guys, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you very much for watching. Tell me, guys, in the comment section below how you guys thought of the Capitals offseason. And, yeah, I'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigos.